Hi. Normally, I begin these videos by saying it's time for another verb of the day, but today we're not going to be discussing a new verb. Instead, I'm going to talk a little more about the three verbs I've discussed earlier this week. These are the verbs arise, rise, and raise. In the past, I've had some students tell me that these can be a bit confusing, and so it's my hope that by having this extra discussion, you will feel a little more confident in using these three verbs. So let's begin our discussion by talking a little bit about pronunciation and our different tenses. So you'll notice I've got a chart here with our base verb, the simple past tense, and the past participle forms of these verbs. And if you watched this week's earlier videos, then you know arise and rise are both irregular verbs. Raise is a regular verb. Okay, so let's take a look, and I've made some pronunciation notes. I know sometimes that IPA can be a little hard to read and understand, so I'll make sure I'm saying these nice and clearly. So my base verb here, arise, hopefully you can hear it ending with this long I in it. Okay, and then in the past tense, I'm going to change the vowel sound to a long O, arose. Arose. And then the participle, now my second verbs, or my second vowel sound is going to be a short I, arisen, arisen. Okay. Second verb, rise, also has this long I. In the past tense, it changes to a long O, rose, and then in the participle, we go to a short I, risen, risen. Okay, so those should sound alike. I hope you're hearing those. The difference, of course, is the beginning sound. We've got that schwa sound on A-R-I-S-E, arise, arise. Okay, our last verb here is raise, raise. This has a long A vowel sound, and we're going to continue with that long A in all of our different tenses. So I'm just adding the letter D to make my past tense and participle forms. The vowel sound stays the same. Raised, raised. Okay, so hope those help. But now let's get into a bit of a discussion about which one should I use. Okay, so if you're writing or you're speaking and you're trying to indicate that something, and this could be something good or something bad, has started to exist or is beginning to exist, then use the verb arise. Okay, so an example of how you might hear this used: an opportunity has arisen. Opportunity always has this kind of positive meaning to it. So here's a good thing that is beginning to exist. Okay, we do not want to say an opportunity has risen. I know it might sound so close, but arisen would be a better choice there. Okay, now if you're talking about something moving upward and sort of moving upward on its own, then your verb choice here, I would suggest using rise. So an example of this: the sun is rising. There's maybe I'm describing what I'm watching happening early in the morning. Okay, we don't want to use arise in that case. We can also use rise when we're talking about something increasing. And particularly when we're not discussing the cause of that increase. So an example of this: are prices rising? Okay, that's a better choice. Don't ask, are prices rising? Okay, not what you intend there. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, well, wait a second. Katie, in your other video in raise, we talked about increasing intensity. We talked about moving something upward or lifting something upward. And great if you've paid attention to that. What's a little bit different about the verb raise is that it's always going to be followed by a direct object. Okay, so we're talking about moving something upward or increasing something, and usually it's because of someone or something else. That's when we are going to use raise. So I've got a few different examples here. So if I want to indicate who's responsible for moving prices upwards, I might say, did the company raise prices? Okay, so prices here is that direct object. We're always going to have an object right after that. So that could be a helpful hint for you. Generally, I would struggle to think of an example where you could just end the sentence with the verb raise. Different if it's a noun, but strictly speaking with the verb, there's usually going to be an object, almost always, that comes after this particular verb. So in my example, did the company raise prices? That's good. We wouldn't say, did the company rise prices? No, right? We could, again, just kind of go back and say, did prices rise? So here again, I'm not noting the cause or kind of who is responsible for that. Okay, I've got a few more examples. If I'm talking about temperature moving upward, temperature increasing, I would say the temperature is rising. Okay, R-I-S-I-N-G. I'm not going to say raising, right? And again, one of the reasons is there's no object after it. I need an object after the verb raise. Lastly, I always think of this example with the verb raise, right? You might see the imperative, the command. You might hear a teacher say, please raise your hand. Okay, so again, here, hand, your hand, is the object. Okay, we're not going to have a direct object after rise. So we wouldn't say, please raise your hand. Don't do that. So hopefully the lines through those things help you kind of understand some of those differences. I do want to note a similarity between arise and rise. You might have noticed if you watched the earlier videos that both of these words can mean that someone is moving into a standing position. They might be moving from that position after having been seated, maybe they were kneeling, or maybe they were lying down. Okay, but they're going to move upward here. I would note, again, they have similar meanings here, but to hear arise used in modern times in 2022 sounds a little strange. It sounds very formal, like someone is trying to demonstrate, look, I know how to use this word. But I do think you will see more instances of it if you're reading some really old literature, or maybe you're watching a movie, a TV show that is set a couple hundred years ago. So I've got an example. I think I saw a story where maybe like a king was speaking and said, arise knights, right? He was telling it like, stand up, and he was going to send them off into a battle, right? Again, not so common to hear. An example, if you happen to watch a lot of legal TV shows, dramas, or maybe work in a courthouse, you'll hear the verb rise used, and that's a formal setting, usually when a judge enters the courtroom. So someone might say, all rise, right? So again, they want people to stand up for the honorable judge, and you'll hear usually someone's surname or their last name. Well, I hope this video makes you feel a little more comfortable in using the verbs arise, rise, and raise. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.